Cristiano Ronaldo has just made a huge announcement about his future, and it's left football fans with one big question. Did he just reveal when he'll retire? His latest comments suggest the World Cup could be his final chapter in football. Let me break it down. Let's start with what actually happened this week because it moved fast. Before Portugal even kicked off against Croatia in the round of 32, Ronaldo's sister Keisha Aveiro stood outside BMO Field in Toronto and dropped what reporters are now calling a bombshell. She wasn't vague about it either. Speaking to reporters outside BMO Field in Toronto ahead of Portugal's knockout clash against Croatia, Aveiro revealed that after 1,000 goals he will retire, saying she's talking about the national team and that the information she has from a reliable source tells her this World Cup is his last dance. She kept going, "From the information I have, he can say goodbye. Enjoy it while it lasts. It's not today that he's saying goodbye, but it's soon. I believe this is his farewell. Enjoy it a lot." She added it would be hard to find someone like him again once he's gone. That's family, that's blood. That's not a random pundit floating a theory. That's his own sister telling Portuguese television she has reliable information from inside the camp. Now here's where it gets interesting, because Ronaldo didn't stay quiet about it. After Portugal beat Croatia 2-1 in that round of 32 match, reporters asked him directly about what his sister said. His response wasn't a denial. "I don't make reckless decisions," he said, after ending a 20-year-long heartbreak with Portugal at the World Cup that night. Then he added the line that's now everywhere: "I don't make reckless decisions. I will decide after the tournament, not now." Read that again. He didn't say his sister was wrong. He didn't say "I'm playing for years yet." He said the decision comes after the tournament. That's confirmation a decision is coming. He's just not making it in front of cameras mid-tournament. And there's a piece of context that makes his sister's comments land even harder. This wasn't Ronaldo's finest individual night on the pitch until it suddenly was. He played every single minute of the group stage, survived while teammates like Bruno Fernandes and Vitinha got hooked. And then in the 68th minute against Croatia, he finally did something he'd never managed before. He scored in a World Cup knockout match, an equalizing penalty. It was, by every account, the goal of his career at this stage of his life. And 13 minutes later, Roberto Martinez pulled him off. The reaction on his face said it all. As expected, the 41-year-old did not look happy. When his number 7 flashed up on the fourth official's board, and his facial expression was priceless. Cameras caught it, commentators reacted live. And within minutes, it was being clipped and shared everywhere with the same question attached. Was that his last ever moment on a World Cup pitch? Martinez brought on Ruben Neves for control, shifted Portugal to one striker up top with Gonçalo Ramos leading the line, and Ronaldo had to watch the rest of the match, the one where Ramos ended up scoring the winner in the 94th minute from the bench. He didn't sulk about it publicly. Ronaldo did embrace Neves as he exited the pitch before shaking hands with Martinez and taking his place on the bench. But the optics were impossible to ignore. The biggest goal scorer of his generation subbed off in a knockout match. On the same night, his sister told the world he's on his way out. After the game, Ronaldo was asked again about his future, and again he didn't shut it down. He said his future is not what matters at this moment and that he'll talk about it later, explaining he will speak with my family before making his decision. Speak with his family, the same family whose spokesperson, his own sister, just told Portuguese TV this is the last dance. So within the space of about 48 hours, we had a sister publicly stating the World Cup is his Portugal farewell. A substitution that looked for all the world like the final World Cup image of his career. And Ronaldo himself confirming a decision is coming right after the tournament ends, not during it. That's the announcement everyone's talking about, not a press conference, not an Instagram post. A sequence of moments, family confirmation, a manager substitution, and Ronaldo's own words. All pointing the same direction, all landing within days of each other. But to understand how big a deal this actually is, you need to understand what Ronaldo has spent the last several months building toward, and why this World Cup was always going to be the breaking point one way or another. This isn't a story that started this week. It's been building since last year, and Ronaldo has been dropping breadcrumbs the entire time. He just kept moving the goalposts on when exactly the door would close. Go back to November, Portugal were on the verge of qualifying for this World Cup, and Ronaldo sat down for an interview and made the clearest statement he'd made up to that point. With Portugal on the verge of qualifying for the 2026 World Cup, Ronaldo confirmed the tournament in the United States, Canada, and Mexico would be his swan song on football's biggest stage. He didn't hedge. Definitely yes, because I will be 41 years old at the World Cup, he said, adding that he's the top scorer in history with 143 international goals at the time. That same week, he sat down with CNN's Becky Anderson at a summit in Riyadh and said almost the exact same thing, word for word in spirit. I will be 41 years old and I think will be the moment in the big competition, Ronaldo told CNN. When pushed on when he'd retire from the sport entirely, not just international football. He didn't give a date, but he didn't dodge either. I'm enjoying the moment, but when I mean soon, it's really soon because I gave everything for football, he said. Sky Sports got their own version of that same conversation. And this is where the club career piece of the puzzle really starts to take shape. Captain Cristiano Ronaldo admitted next summer's tournament will be his last major tournament before retiring, and he is set to stop completely within 1 or 2 years. He was blunt about it when pressed on a timeline. As I tell you before, I feel very good in this moment. I score goals, I still feel quick and sharp. I'm enjoying my game in the national team and Al Nassr. But of course, let's be honest, when I mean soon, it's probably 1-2 years where I'll still be at the game. And when a reporter asked him point blank if this World Cup would be his last major international tournament, there was no ambiguity at all. Definitely yes. So notice what's happening across these interviews. He's not just talking about walking away from Portugal. He's talking about the whole picture, country and club, collapsing into the same rough window. 1 or 2 years, that's not a throwaway line. That's a man doing the math on his own career out loud. There's an emotional layer to this too, one that gets lost when people just focus on the goals and the records. In that same run of interviews, Ronaldo was asked what retirement will actually feel like when it comes. And he didn't play it cool. Ronaldo revealed he is planning to retire soon and predicts he probably will cry when the time comes. Having scored 952 goals in his career at that point while targeting 1,000 before hanging up his boots. He went further, describing it as something he's been quietly bracing for years. Soon, but I think I will be prepared. It will be tough, of course. I probably will cry, yes. I'm an open person. It will be very, very difficult, yes. But I have prepared my future since the age of 25, 26, 27 years old. That's a man who has known this was coming for the better part of 2 decades, and has been planning his landing the entire time, which makes sense when you look at what he's actually chasing right now. Because there's one number that explains almost everything about why he hasn't already walked away. 1,000 goals. He's currently sitting at over 970 in his career, per the running tally being kept by outlets covering this World Cup. And he's made no secret that hitting 4 figures matters to him more than almost anything else left on the table. It's the reason people who know him don't believe he retires the second Portugal's Portugal run ends. It's the reason the Saudi chapter of his story, the Al Nassr deal that made him the sport's first billionaire player. Following a contract he signed with Al Nassr, according to the Bloomberg Billionaires Index, still has road left to run. And that Al Nassr contract is a detail worth sitting with, because it complicates the picture in exactly the way that makes this whole story so compelling. He's not out of contract next month at the club level. Ronaldo is under contract with Saudi Pro League side Al Nassr through June 2027. So even in the version of events where he shuts the door on Portugal for good, there's a contractual runway with his club that stretches a full year beyond this World Cup. That's the tension driving this entire story. Country and club aren't necessarily moving on the same clock. His sister's comments were specifically about the national team. She made that distinction herself. But Ronaldo's own words, stacked up across the last 8 months, keep circling back to the same phrase, soon for everything, club included. And that brings us to the moment that turned all of this speculation into something. The entire football world was suddenly forced to confront in real time, the night in Toronto itself. Every piece of this story, the sisters' comments, the interviews, the contract, the countdown, all of it came to a head on one single night in Toronto. And it happened in a match that had way more layers than just Portugal versus Croatia. Start with the opponent because it mattered. Standing on the other side of the pitch was Luka Modric, 40 years old, Ronaldo's old Real Madrid teammate. A man he won 4 Champions League titles alongside during their years together in Spain. When Portugal faced Croatia in that round of 32 clash, history was made. For the first time, 2 outfield players aged over 40 started against each other in a World Cup match. One report put it plainly, more importantly for one of them, football's greatest tournament was almost certainly about to end. It did end, just not for the one everyone expected. Croatia lost 2-1, and it was Modric, not Ronaldo, who walked away from a World Cup pitch for the last time that night. Croatia coach Zlatko Dalic and Portugal's Roberto Martinez paid tribute to Modric, who almost certainly played his last World Cup match. And after the gut-wrenching loss, the 40-year-old shared a long exchange with the 41-year-old Ronaldo, two football greats nearing the end of their international playing careers. The image of that exchange has been described by multiple outlets as the moment that will outlast the scoreline. One report captured it simply: history is more likely to remember what happened after the final whistle, when Cristiano Ronaldo and Luka Modric embraced knowing only one of them would continue chasing the World Cup. Another framed it as a passing of the torch between two men who spent nearly 2 decades at the summit of the sport together. Ronaldo and Modric have shared dressing rooms, Champions League trophies, Ballon d'Or, impossible expectations, and almost 2 decades at the very top. But Modric's ending wasn't the only ending on the pitch that night. Because in the 81st minute, 13 minutes after his equalizing penalty, Martinez made the call that dominated headlines for days afterward. Cristiano Ronaldo was taken off by Roberto Martinez in Portugal's round of 32 win over Croatia, with the manager making the surprise decision to replace the 5-time Ballon d'Or winner in the 81st minute with the scores level at 1-1. Think about what that substitution looked like in the moment before Ramos scored the winner. Ronaldo subbed off, visibly frustrated, walking to the bench not knowing whether Portugal would even survive the match, let alone whether he'd get another World Cup appearance at all. One outlet described the scene bluntly: Portugal head coach Roberto Martinez made a stunning call, substituting Cristiano Ronaldo in the 81st minute of their World Cup clash against Croatia, and the 41-year-old captain walked off with visible bewilderment, his expression saying it all. He was clearly not expecting to be taken off. For a few tense minutes, it genuinely looked like it might be the last image of Ronaldo's World Cup career. Not a goal, not a trophy lift, just a substitution board with the number 7 on it. It took Goncalo Ramos's stoppage time header and a controversial VAR overturn on a Croatia equalizer to save Portugal and, by extension, save Ronaldo's tournament for at least one more round. There was another layer to that night too, one that had nothing to do with retirement timelines and everything to do with grief. Ronaldo was very much involved in the celebrations after Portugal's passage was secured, and he sported a Diogo Jota shirt in a tribute to his late teammate on the anniversary of his death. One report described the scene in full. After the final whistle, Ronaldo pulled on Jota's No. 21 shirt, pointed towards the sky, and broke into tears as Portugal advanced, but their thoughts remained with their late teammate. So on the same night, his international future became the biggest question in football. Ronaldo was also processing something far heavier: the loss of a teammate, marked in real time in front of a packed stadium. It's worth sitting with that for a second, because it complicates any clean narrative about a farewell tour. This wasn't a man simply riding a victory lap. It was a man carrying grief, playing every minute of a group stage at 41, getting hooked at the exact moment his legacy needed one more goal, and hearing his own sister tell the cameras that the clock had basically run out. When reporters caught up with him afterward and pushed on what his sister said, that's when he delivered the line that's been replayed everywhere since. Cristiano Ronaldo had not made any decisions about the future of his international career following Portugal's win over Croatia, telling reporters, "I don't make reckless decisions. I will decide after the tournament, not now." He wasn't correcting his sister. He wasn't disputing the framing. He was simply saying, "Not yet, not here, not mid-tournament." And with Portugal moving on to face Spain in the round of 16, that "not now" suddenly had an expiration date attached to it. Every match left in this tournament became, potentially, the literal last match of Cristiano Ronaldo's international career, which is exactly the kind of pressure that turns a football match into a farewell tour, whether the player wants it framed that way or not. A story this big doesn't stay contained to one player and one sister. Once Keisha Avero's comments landed, everyone connected to this World Cup had something to say about it. Teammates, rivals, managers, commentators. And the range of reactions tells you just how unresolved this whole situation actually is. Start with Roberto Martinez, the man who made the substitution call that set off its own wave of speculation. He didn't address Ronaldo's future directly in the aftermath, but his praise for Modric that same night said plenty about how he views this era of players closing out. His example is going to stay in the folklore of football forever, Portugal's coach told reporters, saying it's not often you talk about a player who can put his foot on the ball and make the right decision, calling Modric the beautiful example of that and praising him for playing the game like a young man. Reading between the lines, that's a manager who understands exactly what it means when a legend's clock runs out, which makes his decision to pull Ronaldo off 13 minutes after his biggest goal of the tournament land even heavier. Then there's the football media itself, which spent days picking apart what the substitution actually meant. One outlet framed the entire situation as a fork in the road that had to resolve one way or another. This had to be the end for one of Modric or Ronaldo at the World Cup. Certainly, if Ronaldo's sister was to be believed, it would be the Croatia star who bowed out in Toronto, while Ronaldo, though, had at least one more last dance. Assuming Martinez wasn't feeling empowered to make a different call before facing Spain's record-breaking defense. That's a pointed way of putting it. Even football writers who cover this stuff for a living were treating Ronaldo's continuation as conditional, dependent on his manager's willingness to keep starting him, not just on Ronaldo's own form or wishes. Other commentaries zoomed out to the bigger picture of a golden generation all approaching the exit at once. One piece grouped Ronaldo alongside Modric and Lionel Messi as three men who were all supposed to be finished years ago and simply refused to leave. Despite widespread expectations of retirement after Qatar 2022, Ronaldo, Modric, and Messi all remained central to the current World Cup, with Messi, who turned 39 the week of the tournament, scoring 6 goals in just over 2 group matches, sparking speculation he could feature in yet another World Cup. The same piece drew a sharp distinction and motivation between the three, noting that Ronaldo is tantalizingly close to 1,000 career goals, and the prospect of playing alongside his son, making his continuation at club level near certain, while Modric, without such obvious motivations, seems certain to call it a day whenever Croatia's competition ends. That distinction matters. It's the clearest explanation anywhere of why Ronaldo's story splits in two. Portugal might be ending, but Al Nassr, the son following in his footsteps. The chase for 4 figures in career goals. None of that has an obvious closing date attached to it yet. Then there's Fabrizio Romano, the transfer journalist whose word tends to move markets and headlines alike. Just weeks before this tournament kicked off, Ronaldo told him directly that the door on his international career might not be as shut as his sister now suggests. Ronaldo told Fabrizio Romano in June that he has not ruled out playing in the 2030 World Cup, which will be co-hosted by Spain, Morocco, and his native Portugal. Given that Portugal is one of the 3 hosts, one outlet pointed out just how hard that possibility would be to dismiss outright. Given that Portugal is co-hosting the tournament, it's hard to imagine Ronaldo won't at least consider playing. And if he does, he'd be chasing history. Since Egyptian goalkeeper Essam El Hadary currently holds the record as the oldest player to ever feature in a World Cup, having played at 45, the exact same age Ronaldo would be. So somewhere between his sister's certainty and his own comments to Romano, there's a real contradiction sitting in plain sight. One camp says this is definitely the last dance. The man himself, weeks earlier, told one of the most trusted names in football journalism that 2030 isn't off the table. Even the wider football commentary picked up on that exact tension. One long-form piece looking at both Ronaldo and Modric's situations put it directly. Ronaldo, for his part, was about to pen the most gilded retirement plan imaginable, next door in Saudi Arabia. While after carrying Croatia to 3rd place, Luka Modric, too, was going to see if he could eke out one more tournament before taking his curtain call. How wrong we all were. That's the theme running through basically every voice weighing in on this. Everyone predicted these two would be gone years ago, and everyone kept being wrong. Even the game itself and the players around him keep bending toward this being a moment bigger than one match. Ivan Perisic, Modric's Croatia teammate, scored that late equalizer that got overturned, extending the tension of the entire night, while Ronaldo was neither the first nor the only old-timer on the scoresheet, with Perisic finding the net in the 2018 final and at 37 winning his 158th cap, getting forward from left back to add another. It's a tournament full of veterans defying expectations, which is exactly why nobody's willing to call Ronaldo's ending with total confidence. Not his manager, not the pundits, not even, it seems, entirely himself. So where does that leave us? Portugal moved on to face Spain in the round of 16, and every match from here forward carries the weight of potentially being Ronaldo's last appearance in a World Cup shirt. That's not speculation anymore. That's just the math of a single elimination tournament layered on top of everything his sister said and everything he's said himself. Here's what we actually know, stacked up plainly. His sister told Portuguese television, using the words "reliable source," that this tournament is his last dance with the national team. And she was careful to specify she was talking about Portugal, not his club career. Ronaldo, when asked directly, didn't deny it. He said the decision comes after the tournament, not during it, and that he'll talk to his family first. His manager pulled him off 13 minutes after the best goal of his tournament, in a moment that briefly looked like it might be the final image of his World Cup career before Ramos rescued the match. And in the background of all of it sits a contract with Al Nassr running through 2027, a chase for 1,000 career goals sitting just around the corner. And his own comments to Fabrizio Romano that even 2030 in a World Cup hosted partly by his own country hasn't been ruled out. That's the shape of the announcement everyone's talking about. Not a single press conference moment, but a convergence. Family, manager, and player all pointing toward the same exit sign at roughly the same time. Even if the exact door he walks through, country first or club first or both together, hasn't been nailed down yet. What's clear is that Ronaldo himself has been talking about this for the better part of a year in a way that keeps sharpening. Back in November, it was definitely yes on this being his last major tournament. By the time he sat down with Piers Morgan, it had become an admission that he's planning to retire soon and expects to cry when it happens. After a career of preparing for this exact moment since his mid-20s. And now, in the thick of the tournament itself, it's tightened even further into a promise, a decision. After the final whistle blows on Portugal's World Cup, whenever that ends up being, there's also the human layer that's easy to lose in all the retirement math. The Hoda tribute, the tears. The embrace with Modric that multiple outlets are already calling more memorable than the scoreline itself. Whatever Ronaldo decides, this tournament has already given him one of the more emotionally loaded stretches of his career. Goals and grief and a farewell that wasn't even his own sitting right next to speculation about his. Portugal's run continues, and so does the countdown. Whether it ends against Spain or further down the bracket, or extends all the way to a final Ronaldo has never won. One thing is now sitting in the open, in a way it wasn't a week ago. His sister has said her piece, he's confirmed a decision is coming. And the timeline everyone's been guessing at for years finally has an endpoint attached to it. What exactly he decides, and whether that decision covers just the national team or his entire career, is the one thing even the people closest to him, Ronaldo included from that dodge with reporters, say has to wait until the whistle blows on this tournament for good. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.